What's up, peeps? It's me. I'm just here because I wanted to give y'all this breaking news. And yes, this is very important. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope everybody's being smart. I hope everybody's staying safe. And I hope everybody's staying on code. But I'm coming to you now to bring you some breaking news, okay? So y'all just hold on just 1 minute. All right, this is coming from NBC News. February 18, 2023, Kim Tong Hyung, Associated Press. Like I said, February 18, 2023, 3:45 a.m. And here's the story. North Korea fires missiles as U.S., South Korea prepare for drills. North Korea has fired a long-range missile from its capital into the sea off of Japan. Seoul, South Korea, that's where it's coming from. South Korea's military said North Korea on Saturday fired one suspected long-range missile from its capital toward the sea, a day after it threatened to take strong measures against South Korea and the U.S. over their joint military exercises. The Joint Chiefs of Staff in Seoul said the ballistic missile was fired at around 5:22 p.m. from an area in Sunan, the site of Pyongyang's International Airport. It didn't immediately say where the weapon landed. North Korea's foreign ministry on Friday threatened with unprecedentedly strong action against its rivals after South Korea announced a series of planned military exercises with the United States aimed at sharpening their response to the North's growing threats. So understand, with all the stuff that we got going on in Ukraine and all this support that we're giving to Ukraine and now Biden is talking about, we're going to talk about that too in a later video. Now Biden is talking about putting money in their pockets and offering them pensions and all of this kind of stuff. We got balloons all of a sudden coming from China. We've got all of these balloon sightings. We got all of these so-called UFO, unidentified flying object sightings all over North America, Canada, and South America, and other places. Now we find out that we're getting ready to, it appears to have some issues with North Korea, okay? Toshiro Ino, Japan's Vice Minister of Defense, said the missile was expected to have landed in waters within Japan's exclusive economic zone, about 20 kilometers, 125 miles west of Oshima Island. Oshima lies off the western coast of the northernmost main island of Hokkaido. We are doing our utmost, working closely with the U.S. to gain information and analyze and take appropriate vigilance and surveillance measures to protect the lives and property of our people, he told reporters. The launch was North Korea's first known testing activity since January 1st, when it test-fired a short-range weapon. It followed a massive military parade in Pyongyang last week, where troops rolled out more than a dozen intercontinental ballistic missiles as leader Kim Jong-un watched in delight from a balcony. The unprecedented number of missiles underscored a continuation of expansion of his country's military capabilities despite limited resources, while negotiations with Washington remain stalemated. Those missiles included a new system experts say is possibly linked to the North's stated desire to acquire a solid fuel ICBM. North Korea's existing ICBMs, including Wonsong 17s, use liquid propellants that require pre-launch injections and cannot remain fueled for prolonged periods. A solid fuel alternative would take less time to prepare and is easier to move around on vehicles, providing less opportunity to be spotted. It wasn't immediately clear whether Saturday's launch involved a solid fuel system. North Korea is coming off a record year in weapons demonstrations with more than 70 ballistic missiles fired, including ICBMs with potential range to reach the U.S. mainland. The North also conducted a slew of launches it describes as simulated nuclear attacks against South Korean and U.S. targets in response to the Allies' resumption of large-scale joint military exercises that had been downsized for years. North Korea's missile tests have been punctuated by threats of preemptive nuclear attacks against South Korea or the United States over what is perceived as a broad range of scenarios that put its leadership under threat. Kim doubled down on his nuclear push entering 2023, calling for an exponential increase in the country's nuclear warheads, mass production of battlefield tactical nuclear weapons targeting enemy South Korea, and the development of more advanced ICBMs. The North Korean statement on Friday accused Washington and Seoul of planning more than 20 rounds of military drills this year, including large-scale field exercises, and described its rivals as the arch criminals deliberately disrupting regional peace and stability. The statement came hours after South Korea's Defense Ministry officials told lawmakers that Seoul and Washington would hold an annual computer-simulated combined training in mid-March. The 11-day training would reflect North Korea's nuclear threats as well as unspecified lessons from the Russia-Ukraine war, according to Hyo Tae-kyung, South Korea's Deputy Minister of National Defense Policy. So see, all of this stuff is intertwined, and all of this stuff is turning into a mess because the United States is involved in stuff that we really don't need to be involved in. And all of this training, because remember, they just announced, what was it, about a month and a half ago, the United States just announced that they were bringing in these Ukrainian soldiers into this base. I think the base was in Oklahoma or somewhere. I'll see if I can find the story, so that they can train these Ukrainian soldiers on United States soil at this base. So, okay, let's continue. Hyo said the two countries will also conduct joint field exercises in mid-March that would be bigger than those held in the past 2 years. Well, in the past few years. South Korea and the U.S. will also hold a one-day tabletop exercise next week at the Pentagon to sharpen a response to a potential use of nuclear weapons by North Korea. The exercise, scheduled for Wednesday, would set up possible scenarios where North Korea uses military weapons, explore how to cope with them militarily, and formulate crisis management plans, South Korea's defense ministry said. North Korea has traditionally described U.S. South Korea military exercises as rehearsals for a potential invasion, while the Allies insist that their drills are defensive in nature. So North Korea has fired off this missile, right? Now the missile landed, they say it landed in the sea off of Japan, but they have fired off this missile in response to hearing that the United States and South Korea were planning all of these expansive drills together. So I just really thought that this was interesting, and I really thought that this was some breaking news, considering all the stuff that we have seen in the skies in the last 2 weeks. And all the different unidentified objects, and all the balloons and all of this kind of stuff that was supposed to be coming from China, and all of this stuff that have been shot down in the last week and a half, 2 weeks, right? So I want to go over here, back to the New York Post, and I want to talk about these sightings a little bit. This is from the New York Post. Yaron Steinbach February 14, 2023, while the sudden surge in UFO sightings after Chinese balloon saga. The recent publicized spat of UFOs spotted over North America has left some wondering whether aliens are invading Earth, but the reason for the sightings is not so out of this world, experts say. At any given moment, thousands of balloons float thousands of feet above the ground, including many sit afloat by the U.S. government and military and private entities. Paul Fetkowicz, president of Kmart Consolidated Industries, a maker of high-altitude balloons in Melbourne, Florida, said to the New York Times. While the objects have long been observed by pilots, military personnel, and civilians, it only seems as if there are more, at least partly because of the recent sightings being publicized, experts say. For years, you didn't hear anything about balloons. Now we're on the lookout for any kind of flying object. Terry Daschle, emeritus professor of atmospheric science at the University of Wyoming, told the outlet. U.S. Air Force fighter jets recently shot down 4 suspicious objects in a little over a week, famously beginning with a Chinese spy balloon that was downed over the Atlantic Ocean after it traversed the entire country. And they got all kind of pictures and all kinds of stuff in here, in this article. 3 additional unidentified flying objects, one over Alaska on Friday, a small metallic balloon over northeastern Canada on Saturday, and a 3rd octagonal object over Lake Huron on Sunday, were then ordered shot down by President Biden. The last 3 objects have not been linked to China, other countries, or aliens for that matter. Air Force General Glenn Van Hark, head of the U.S. North American Aerospace Defense Command and Northern Command, made sensational headlines Sunday when he said he couldn't rule out little green men, forcing the White House to quickly issue a clarification the next day that the U.S. has no indication of aliens or extraterrestrial activity tied to the objects. So see, it's a whole lot going on, and you wonder why we see some of the stuff that we're seeing. You know, why the deflections and the distractions? Why the distractions? And now the only reason why they're really talking about what the United States and South Korea are planning as far as these joint military exercises and all this is concerned, the only reason why we're hearing anything about that now is because North Korea has fired off this missile. A former NORAD commander suggested Monday that the most recently shot down trio may have been launched by non-Chinese adversaries to test the U.S. reaction. Non-Chinese. Possibly North Korean. Possibly, you know, at this point, come on now. The seeming proliferation of suspicious airborne objects could simply stem, at least partly, from focused attention on what the U.S. government now refers to as unidentified aerial phenomenon, or UAP. So now they're giving it a different name, which have long been observed by pilots, military personnel, and civilians, according to reports. In recent days, the U.S. also has sought to enhance its radars and atmospheric trackers to more closely monitor the nation's airspace after the incident with the Chinese balloon. Experts warn the move could result in a rash of false alarms about the objects. There also is the psychological phenomenon known as the frequency illusion, a type of cognitive bias that causes people to notice things more after first hearing about them. In addition, the latest spotting of high-up objects comes as the Pentagon has undertaken a new push in recent years to investigate military sightings of UAPs. This past summer, the Pentagon formed the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. Lord have mercy. This is the kind of stuff that our government wastes money on. which has reviewed 366 reports of UAPs, finding them to be mostly items such as balloons, drones, birds, or aerial clutter. Still, 171 sightings remain unofficially unexplained. Each year, the National Weather Service launches about 60,000 balloons into the stratosphere, which extends to a height of roughly 30 miles, according to the Times. The agency's balloons are designed to reach an altitude of 20 miles, far higher than any of the objects detected in the past few days. By comparison, the typical commercial plane cruises between about 6 and almost 8 miles above sea level, according to the U.S. Today. Fekowicz said these weather balloons were designed to eventually burst and break into fine particles, though some might have been underinflated and could remain intact as they float aimlessly because they never fly high enough to burst. A balloon launched in Denver might land in New Jersey, he told the Times. NASA also runs a program in Texas that has launched more than 1,700 balloons on lengthy scientific missions over the years, with payloads weighing up to 4 tons, the outlet reported. Another reason for the sharp rise in sightings may stem from the U.S. government's efforts to publicly destigmatize the topic of a UAP, and publicly note and recognize the potential risks they pose, both as an aviation hazard and potential adversarial activity, such as spying, NPR reported. So they coming up with all of these millions and one reasons why all of this stuff is floating around up in the sky. Now the United States has to come out and admit that the government sends up thousands and thousands and thousands of these balloons and all of these little flying objects all the time. They got to come out and admit that now, although we knew it. They got to come out and admit it now because it's so much happening. But with all of these sightings, these things having to be shot down, Chinese spy balloons and all of this kind of stuff, and now we have North Korea firing off a missile. And again, I just want to read this to you again. South Korea's military said North Korea on Saturday fired one suspected long-range missile from its capital toward the sea, a day after it threatened to take strong measures against South Korea and the U.S. over their joint military exercises. And what was that article that I just mentioned? I just mentioned something. I can't remember what it was. I'll go back and I'll listen to the playback and I'll see if I can find what I was what I told you I was going to find. Because I told you I was going to look for something. And I can't remember exactly what it was that I said I was going to look for. But I'll go back and I'll listen to the to the playback, and as I'm listing my sources, I'll see if I can find what I'm talking about. But yeah, this is what's going on. You need to be aware of everything that's going on around you. How much mainstream media is going to cover this, I have no idea. But I just thought you needed to know that not only are we heavily involved, too heavily involved in what's going on in the Ukraine with the Ukraine and Russian war. Not only are we too heavily involved in that, now we're too heavily involved in what's going on with South Korea and North Korea. And if I'm not mistaken, I do think that if I'm remembering right, that Trump went to North Korea and they kind of resolved that issue. They kind of laid that issue to rest a little bit over there, and they were starting to build a halfway decent international relationship or whatever. Now, if I'm wrong, y'all let me know. If I'm wrong, y'all let me know in the comments that I'm wrong about that. But I think that's what's going on. But anyway, this is what I wanted to bring y'all. This is the breaking news that I wanted to bring y'all, because we need to know what's going on. We need to understand what's going on around us so that we can begin to understand some of all the stories that just pop up out of nowhere, all these distractions and all of this. And we need to also delve into why Biden seems to be so committed to the Ukraine, to the point of we're already talking about billions of dollars, and now he's talking about putting money in these people's pockets and long-term pensions and all this kind of stuff. But we'll get into that in another video. But that's what I have for y'all today. Y'all get down in that what is it, y'all? Description box. These articles, and maybe I'll find one or two other articles to put down in there. But again, keep your head on swivel. Keep your power tools at the ready. You understand what I'm saying? Be smart. Stay safe. Stay on code. And pay attention. Pay very, very close attention to what's going on around you. All right? And I will talk to you guys later. Have a good one.